To produce bulk oil, on average in Italy, we could say it costs about 10 or 11 euros per liter.
A super intensive one.
About 4 euros per liter of oil.
And here we ended the video. In your super intensive grove, which isn't exactly super intensive, you could have pushed it a bit more.
Yes, because my super intensive grove is 9 years old, and when I started it, I didn't believe in the...
It seemed too good to be true.
It seemed too good to be true. It's 5 by 2.5.
But you said it's half a hectare. Did you do it?
38, 40 quintals of...
40 quintals, whereas in the classic ones, where we also have small ones, big plants and so on.
They're not big plants.
Do you do it per hectare?
But they're a good size for our land. I get 40 quintals per hectare.
So you've halved it, I mean, on half a hectare. It's much more convenient there.
Yes, but the real advantage beyond the extra production is the impact on labor.
It's clear, because there you put...
Here in the super intensive system, I have a fifth of the labor compared to a traditional olive grove.
And excuse me, but what about the quality?
No, the quality, ironically, if it were even harvested by machine, the quality would actually be much higher.
It spends less time exposed.
I don't have the trampling on the nets, I have nothing. The olives are preserved and so on. What I like to think, and what we're experimenting with now with our nurserymen, is using Italian varieties as super intensive to still maintain a terroir and so on.
Let's check it out. I saw your anti-hail poles have arrived, right? For the super intensive?
Exactly, for both the super intensive and intensive, because what we're experimenting with is putting the insect net on a nano super intensive system. So 2.5, 3 meters high.
Okay.
What we are experimenting with is on a single cone system with traditional cultivars. There are some plants that can even reach a height of 3.5, 4 meters.
So taking a step back, you set up an intensive system, right? Which is not a super intensive one because it's a bit wider.
Exactly.
6 years ago, 10?
No, 15 years ago.
15 years ago, so it's pretty old.
That one, right? Is that intensive? Exactly, that one is intensive.
Monoconal?
Monoconal, so variety.
Then you did this.
9 years ago.
9 years ago, you held it firmly, but not too tight because you said you didn't trust me.
The right sixth was 4 times 2. I did 5 times 2.5.
Because it's impossible and you made a mistake. So you have some experience and now you're going to extend it?
Now I'm going to extend it because we have a vineyard that's now at the end of its cycle will keep the most beautiful vines because they give it an aesthetic quality and so on. So we're still saving a little something.
But
the genetic part, and then we double it, so a 5,000 meter olive grove becomes 13,000 meters.
Okay, because later on, what you'll do, maybe in the next few years, is really focus on the super intensive.
Yes, on super intensive.
So let's start by looking at the anti-hail nets,
which will become an integration with the rest of the company.
Let's explain for a moment, because with super intensive farming, everyone is scared and says no. I see the plants like those, look how beautiful they are. Why would you want to remove them? Why don't we go back to traditional farming with the classic big trees spaced out like our grandfathers did and so on.
So we won't remove these actually. In a block of 8 hectares of traditional olive groves, this year we're going to make them denser. So we're going to remove the almost dead trees and so on, and we'll plant new trees of traditional varieties.
Breaking news, we don't remove them, right?
No.
That's why people take the super intensive course.
The super intensive method in our area, from my point of view, is meant to lower costs, balance production, and increase yield.
Is it similar while keeping quality?
Yes, maintaining quality, and from my point of view, it even improves. However, today, with the issue of labor and maintenance costs, thinking about creating 8 or 10 hectares of new olive groves, of course, I'm just estimating the number of hectares. You can't think of doing it in the traditional way because you wouldn't have the labor to manage it.
So for us, what are the problems? If you use the traditional model, let's say, it takes you a lot of years to go into production, definitely. Because the plants need to grow big.
7, 8 years, 10 years.
Who today has 8 years to wait?
Not me.
No, I mean that the costs don't allow it.
Yes, no.
But also with how the world is going, I absolutely don't know what I'll do tomorrow. So that's the first problem. The second problem is the workforce. And the third problem is market demand. In Italy, we need to make extra virgin olive oil accessible to everyone again. I mean, we can't keep prices this high. I'm speaking as a farmer. They're not high for us. It's the production costs for that type of oil that are high.
They're extremely high.
We also need to return to producing certain quantities. To go and bring and invite our member and Spanish friends and Tunisian friends to Baglioni, and after them, it's fine that they are there. But we also need to go back to being competitive. There's also a popular issue. It's fine to act fancy, but that's not all. In short, being exclusive only for a certain group.
You're right. I'll add one more thing, the olive trees.
Oh no, what the heck?
The traditional olive groves, and I've been doing this job for 28 years now. 20 years ago, producing olives was easy. Now they require cultivation, pruning, treatment, and constant monitoring. So if you don't cultivate them like a vineyard and take a very technical approach, you won't produce, or you'll only produce if the year goes particularly well and you're lucky.
Of course. So these are the poles, right?
These are the poles.
So I'd say let's go take a look right away, but let's check them out in the system so at least we can understand a bit.
So basically, an intensive 6 system follows the vineyard model. So it's done.
Are the machines basically the same?
For row planting, the machines are very, very similar. Those who manage vineyards don't have major issues handling a super intensive olive grove.
But let's get back to the price, because this whole thing about the price really strikes me. Come on, we said more or less. Bulk oil here on Lake Garda is 14 euros, right?
An oil from a traditional olive grove costs to produce
it, not to sell it.
in bulk, to produce it in bulk.
So without bottles, labels, and so on and so forth.
Paid the oil mill.
Does it cost 14 for a farmer in northern Italy?
Maybe even more. Let's say that on average in Italy we could be talking about 10 or 11 euros per liter, all included.
Our friends from Apulia who check the Bari price list market have rightly seen costs go up in recent years.
It was about time. Meaning that
I agree, that's how it is. But what about a super intensive one?
a super intensive one, well, there isn't much experience with that at the moment. I can tell you my experience. I have a 9-year-old olive grove that has been managed pretty well. Not perfectly, because the technique wasn't really known yet, since it's a super intensive we're talking about now, at least in Italy. I've had it for 10 years. Anyway, I can tell you that in my 6,000 square meter olive grove, I have an expense. I have a cost of about 4 euros per liter of oil.
And here we've finished the video. Be careful, it's not fully mechanized yet.
And I haven't fully mechanized it.
I mean, Mark, but...
And I haven't fully mechanized it.
You haven't mechanized it since you still harvest by hand.
Why do we still harvest by hand with nets?
But no, let's go inside because this stuff here is beautiful.
Of course, harvesting is the main cost in a super intensive olive grove, and a super intensive olive grove requires harvesting with a grape harvester.
Come inside so we can see it.
No one will want to harvest 5,000 square meters, you know?
So, but excuse me, so we have, come on, let's go inside a bit. So here, you kept them pretty wide. You could have kept them more compact.
There's an extra meter here since they're 5 meters apart. I could have spaced them 4 meters.
What do they suggest today? 3 meters seems too little.
No, for me, with the little experience I have, 4 by 1.5.
4 by 1.5, but here it's what?
Here it's 2.5 easily. But then you have to consider which varieties are used, because each variety has its own characteristics. So ideally you should rely on a reputable nursery that can advise you, okay?
But which variety is this?
These are 2 varieties, Tosca and Diana.
Which are not ours.
And they're hybrids with our own varieties, because how did the super intensive method come about? It started with dwarf olive trees that are obtained from organized precisely from crosses of already existing olive trees. Okay, so the dwarf growth habit, the consistent production, the lack of alternation, the resistance to certain diseases. Keep in mind that I, who have always seen them produce, And now they produce every year. It's been 4 or 5 years since we've done any pruning.
So you haven't pruned here for 4 or 5 years?
No, we're starting to do it this year.
And you don't do it by hand, sickle bar?
Yes, starting this year we'll use it on half the olive grove and finish in 2 years. We reduce everything, we bring them back, we restructure all of them and bring them back close to the trunk.
Let's check another row since those are a bit taller.
They're a bit taller. This is the maximum height. That's it. You don't do...
This one's denser, but you could have made them even closer.
Now we'll tighten them. When we tighten them, you'll see that the 5 meters will become a highway. Even now there's already a highway.
€4 per liter.
Yes, maybe even less, because the impact of...
Sorry, for the super intensive ones, I've seen balloon-shaped, low-dense ones in Puglia that basically resemble the Guyot system for grapevines. You probably go even lower there.
In my opinion, you're around €2.5.
And they go into production much faster in the third year, like grapevines.
In the third or fourth year? Yeah, well, this one also started producing after 3 years. I was already harvesting here.
No, but let's be clear. So that means if today I had a hectare of land, I plant a super intensive grove. In 3 years, it starts producing, right? You told me with 1 hectare, I can aim for 80 quintals.
Yeah, sure.
80 quintals of oil, how much do we get? 800 liters.
Maybe even 900.
At €4 per liter.
Yes. I produce 8,000 kilos and 800 to 900 liters of oil.
Yes, I did 10%.
Yes. So I've seen olive groves produce even 120 quintals per hectare anyway. No, let's take 80 quintals at 10% yield. That's enough. This year, I produced 38 quintals at 14% yield.
Well, but you're demanding, aren't you? I'm really happy about this, Marco.
I was telling you earlier about hail. I was also lucky that this one didn't get hit by hail.
Is it because it's more compact?
Because I was lucky. What can I say? 50 meters from here, I lost 80%, but here, it didn't even hail.
Yes, but let's talk about the real, actual things. Cost, I have to plant 1 hectare.
So considering the soil preparation, the irrigation system, the plants, you won't go over €25,000, maybe even much less.
You mean less than a vineyard?
Yes, definitely less than a vineyard.
I mean, I already have €25,000 down there. But without the anti-hail nets...
Yeah, those cost a little bit more.
About €20,000 more.
Yeah, with €20,000, I get the soil preparation, the olive grove installation, and the installation of the gas lines.
So why am I making a fuss about the tops? Let's say treatments. So insect protection, hail protection, because you told me €4, but you took action against the olive fruit fly. No, if you use the hail protection top, it also works as insect protection. To clarify, you don't apply any treatments?
Exactly. I also do it for ethical and environmental reasons, since treatments have increased a lot in recent years. This year I did 9 treatments for the fly. 15 treatments in total in 1 year, okay? If I had had insect nets, treatments against the fly would have been 0. Or maybe just 1 or 2.
And those are costs because you have to send someone out.
Those are costs plus environmental pollution, the tractor and soil compaction. Add whatever you want. With those, we solve the problem, let's say, at the root. Even as it is, we already have an olive grove where I use vineyard sprayers.
Yes, no, but this stuff is incredible.
It totally changes the philosophy.
Damn, this stuff is.
By the way,
but this thing here, a young person in agriculture, let's do some math. I'm a young person in agriculture. I get the first settlement, €45,000, at least here in Lombardy. I have to find the land, but I find...
You need to find the land.
The land with water, because here they ask for water, right?
It's better.
Okay, but let's say doing a calculation...
I'm telling you, we can even go look for it in areas that aren't strictly designated. Why?
Why?
Because with climate change, with winters that are no longer cold, you can do agriculture in areas where up until 10 years ago it was unthinkable to do it.
So you're saying the Spanish are doing it without water? We can do the same here.
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying to plant them in the Po Valley, but if I think about
hilly areas, why not?
An olive grove in the mid-hills. Yes, sure. Why not? Yes, absolutely.
Let's go see some rows. This stuff here, Marco, you're killing me.
By the way, unfortunately now...
How beautiful the plants are.
Wait, it kept raining and we couldn't finish it next time because I'll finish it. These days I'm doing 5,000 meters for one of my clients. Exactly, that's 4 by 1.5. just planted with a real super intensive irrigation system.
But there you increase the production. In that case, do you reach 50?
So there I plant 800 plants in 5,000 meters.
I can't imagine what that means. Here you have.
That means a lot. Here I only have 450.
And on a normal system, 200.
A traditional olive grove on 1 hectare has about 200 to 220 trees. 800 plants in 5,000 meters, so we're talking about 1,500 plants per hectare. However, that will be managed as a super intensive organic system, so working under the rows, pruning with the topper, ideally mechanical harvesting.
So you don't touch the scissors?
No, except during the first 2 or 3 years when shaping the plant.
You have to shape the plant.
It's essential since the plants are this tall, so they're tall plants. 50 centimeters is during the first 2 years of cultivation, which are fundamental. But here we're entering a completely different approach to olive growing.
But it's interesting, Marco, because you said €4.
Personally, it's profitable olive growing for a young person. Me, if you want, I'm kind of a dinosaur in love with my traditional olive growing, which I'll never abandon. But this becomes an additional source of income and a balance of costs. Because then, between this and the traditional olive grove, I can become a bit more competitive again.
I mean, if I plant 2 hectares, let's say €40,000 with the nets, or €80,000, okay? I get €45,000 as a first settlement. There are many grants for this, with the government allocating $150 million over 3 years. So I get my money back, right?
For example, the Rural Development Program from Lombardy region is the same across Italy. It considers an intensive olive grove with an irrigation system and anti-insect netting as a scoring factor.
So maybe they give it back to me and you see in 3 years it starts producing, maybe with the nets. Maybe I don't need the sprayer, so I can develop the farm, maybe following other...
Or a smaller sprayer.
Or a smaller sprayer. Clear later, but maybe not entirely.
Let me tell you this. We will get to this and do the testing. Once the nets are installed, we will do the foliar treatments with the drones. Because with drones we can.
Can't you?
We can use pesticides, but we can distribute fertilizers or plant strengtheners. Then you put in an autonomous robot for undervine management and so on.
Because you won't have a lot of tractor passes anyway.
No, absolutely. You completely reduce them, that's why.
And that way you get your income back. Because when you sell the oil at €12 anyway, damn, there's a margin.
I've seen super intensive olive groves even in Emilia, 200, 300 hectares, southern Italy, Calabria, Puglia.
In Puglia, I've seen they're doing very interesting things.
Yes, also because the certified varieties planted today are Xylella resistant, certified as Xylella resistant, which is fundamental, and all the varieties being planted are those.
Also, here's something I haven't asked you. The average lifespan of a super intensive olive grove.
You're asking me a very, very good question.
Because people tell me 20, 30 years like a vineyard.
Not 30 years. I'm just speaking from my own experience. The cycle lasts 20 years. After it ends, I'll try.
20 years.
Once that cycle is over, I'll try. You could also try cutting the plant at the base to make it start again and try to do another cycle. Otherwise, plan B or plan A, if you prefer, is that once that cycle is over, I remove everything and plant the olive grove again.
So here we have to follow a cultural step, but also a legislative one. You can't remove an olive grove without permission. But even if you plant another one at the plant level, it's not...
This should be considered, when we talk about olive trees, we should consider them as an orchard.
Yes, it's an orchard.
An orchard, just like when I remove a vineyard and then plant another one. Who tells me no? No one. I do my paperwork. This orchard is for production, period.
I mean, it's a change of paradigm. We probably, thank God, are connected to a more Apulian context where the olive tree is sacred, it's millennial.
After
they came to see it in other places instead, as it should be. Like you would have a vineyard that after those 35 years today.
And it's right to say it, traditional or heroic olive growing. Because if we think about Liguria, if we go to Liguria, this thing here is impossible.
Clearly possible.
We must maintain it to preserve the social fabric and support farmers. So the vision from that point of view will also have to be at the legislative level to help those who live and reside in that reality
And who manage the landscape.
to make sure it is not abandoned because they are guardians of the landscape.
So in that case, maybe provide some support, of course, because it's nice to walk among the olive trees and see.
Yes, because that's productive olive growing, yes, but with a strong environmental and touristic vocation, touristic.
Nice, Marco. So it's basically this part here that's being put back.
That part here, we're going to pipe it. We'll pipe the ditch, so we'll close the embankment, make it a single section, and the older vines, we'll dig them up, we'll save them all.
Yes, also because there will be some Esker disease here. It's already become part of history.
It's a vineyard that's really reached the end, but there are some healthy, beautiful plants. We'll preserve them as a historical memory.
Beautiful, Marco. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Now, if you're interested, I've suggested to Marco, though we still have to convince him. It's about setting up a permanent system here, 3 days while they install it, to see exactly how it's done. Because look at this stuff here. It's definitely interesting. Today we did some calculations, partly on paper, partly on a newspaper, or even on the cheese wrapping. It would be good to get a bit more hands-on with them, but doing agriculture is getting harder and harder. We also need innovations that build on our tradition, but that can also bring us added value.
Yes, and then, in my opinion anyway, we should look at what others are doing and not demonize them. I had the opportunity to use these networks. I think that at the Italian level, there are still few people who are doing something like this. Let's start doing it because maybe it will work. So let's not demonize it in a broad sense.
Then another thing that matters to me in particular is the quality of extra virgin olive oil that is sold in Italy. It's crap. There are scandals one after another. I'm talking about cheap oil scandals one after another. Most of the oil that's sold is extra European Union if you're lucky. And in my opinion, having an important product like oil, but still popular, so that it's, in short, available for everyone's budget. So with a reasonable price of maybe 10 or 11 euros per liter. In my opinion, it's important.
Let's move from the idea that oil is more than just a condiment, it's a food. And from here we work on this.
Let's smooth things out on both sides, though popularity still matters. Because I understand, I make the oil. I have certain families who buy vegetables from me. I say, look, we can't afford to buy because I actually realize,
in fact,
that there are prices that can be limiting. I like it. Let's say this one. It can't be just my problem and yours. But if we can also act at the Italian level to regain the market, that's important too.
Absolutely agree. To be able to do that, we do it with mechanization, with research, and with technique.
All right, so we'll get back to you. March. In March, you set everything up, and then cool, 4 euros per liter. All right, folks, see you. Subscribe to the channel, 4 euros per liter.